Okay, let's go. Let's
Good
play.
evening, everybody. Welcome to True Crime with the Sarge. I'm your host, Joseph Giacalone, and we have with us tonight, we had her this afternoon, and we had her early in the morning, Lisa Ribacoff. Lisa, we've been here together all day on the internet, but it's good to see you again. It's always good to see you. How you making out for the
Uh,
last 20 minutes that I haven't talked to you?
yeah, I went downstairs, got another energy drink, and ready to go. And I'm looking forward to it because you and I have never had a chance to actually have the one-on-one conversation, other than being at
Right.
crime con, like passing in the hallways and stuff. But I love the fact that I have the opportunity to collaborate with like-minded colleagues. But at this point, though, like whether you want me to call it or not, we're friends. Tough shit. So that's it.
Absolutely. Oh, and we just lost Lisa for a second there. I don't know what happened, but I'm sure she'll come back in when she has the chance. There she is. Yeah, see
And
that
I
you
get
said we were friends, and we had to get rid of you right off the bat.
well
Anyway,
because
so listen, we had a very busy day today. A lot of news going on with Rex Sherman, the arrest affidavit, the bail stuff, all the different things. Let's break down some of the issues that everyone's talking about, or basically some people have kind of skipped over it, and I want to touch on that because there is still a lot to unpack from what happened today. From all of the things that you heard today and that we've spoken about, what's the biggest thing that jumped off the page to you when you were listening to the district attorney or his defense attorney Michael Brown speak?
the biggest takeaway I'm going to have to give to Mike Brown, not even as an honorable mention, as a first prize, where he tries to justify Rex's newly discovered searches and his content area topics as it's the norm. People have things in their closet. Well, I have shirts, I have t-shirts, I have shoes, and I have suitcases. I don't have what's on this bail doc in my closet.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. For those of you that haven't seen it, we're going to post a link later on to the affidavit and the bail document. And you can read it yourself. Because if we actually read out what's written in this affidavit, oh my God, they would ban us right off of YouTube. So the issue that comes down to is I find it distasteful. Listen, defense attorneys, I understand they're going to do what they want to do, but distasteful about the whataboutisms. Everybody has skeletons in their closet, so to speak. But when you're reading those skeletons, I'm telling you, very few people on this earth have those in their closet.
And those that have those in their closet, I believe, have some sort of like-mindedness. And I do think that there's got to be some sort of social network for them, which then becomes learned behavior, because what may pique the interest of one could also pique the interest of another, which turns into research. And I think that's also maybe a connection that his attorney was trying to make, saying, oh, he hears something, or he sees something, or he's watching something. Well, if he's watching something and then he's searching up some of these things, I really want to know what exactly it is that he's watching in order to come up with the terminology and usage of words that he's entering into Google.
Yeah, listen, I mean, they're disturbing beyond all recognition, and I think even for the most hardened person out there, they would find these things extremely disturbing and just not normal. And listen, these searches came out much later than from going back from when these cases were actually happening. It happened, was it 2021 or 2022 around that time frame? So this is some
Yeah.
serious, into it.
So taking a look at the bail, it's stating the fact that the search warrant revealed the email address that was used as recently as April of 2021. If we want to go back in time to that lovely time period, that's exactly a year and a month since the outbreak of COVID. So some people were still sitting at home. Just because of public record searches, we can know that Rex's company did receive PPE loans for business. So we don't know if maybe he was working from home. We don't know what exactly suggested him to go ahead and do these searches, because it could come down to the fact that he didn't have a chance to be out and about, going ahead and roaming the streets. He couldn't solicit anyone. He could not act as if life was normal for him, whatever his normal was. So I do think that there is a transition due to him being home and him being quarantined that maybe led to him going so far off the ledge with regards to the searches.
Well, yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the PPL loans, right? So those are the loans given to businesses for they try to keep employees on the payroll during COVID. I wonder if there's going to be some federal investigation into that too, coming in regards to this case. I mean, I think you got to follow the money on that aspect too.
Yeah, you definitely have to follow the money with regards to that because he was in such financial arrears. It's on my to-do list when I actually have a chance to breathe, to go ahead and take a look to see if he has been or if ASA has been going ahead and satisfying any of these tax liens. Because with the purchasing of the property in South Carolina, that's money that could have gone ahead and been used for to pay off some of these liens. Now, the property that they have in Massapequa Park currently totally in her name. There was a transfer to the deed. It was an interfamily transfer, so she's the sole owner. If she were to take that and sell the house, those proceeds are up for grabs with the IRS because it's considered to be liquid.
Yeah, it's an interesting aspect of this whole thing. We'll hold that thought. Ashley, thank you very much. Just gifted 5 memberships. Ashley, I really appreciate your support on this channel. That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, listen, the whole thing is about follow the money, right? We all know about that, and now it's kind of like follow the digital evidence on top of this. So we heard a lot of new information that came out today, including these digital phones and the Sandbagger 303 and everything else that's going on. Let's talk a little bit about these cell phones. You know, the issue that comes down to is they caught him when they arrested him. He had one. They got one out of his office, and I think they said there was about maybe 7 others that they've recovered so far in their investigation. Is that kind of about the number you heard?
Yeah. I want to say it's in between 7 and 10 that they're located between residence, business, as well as the storage units.
Yeah, the storage unit is definitely something to be excited about because we haven't heard anything about the search warrants, specifically the storage facility. So I mean, we're talking about that credit card bill that was
Yeah.
from the storage facility.
The credit card bill, it states here in the bail application that, where's the exact text? During the execution of numerous search warrants. So just addressing the numerous search warrants, there could be a search warrant for paper. There could be a search warrant for electronic devices. There could be a search warrant for certain physical properties. So it depends upon what law enforcement chooses to go to the judge for and ask. Because typically with some judges, you can't really go there and say, hey, listen, I'm going to throw everything to the wall and I want everything and anything. Judges are going to ask for specific items to be listed, but you also have to justify why you want those items. In this specific case, they're stating numerous search warrants following his arrest. So it's not like it was done previously. They acquired it after he was detained. They secured thousands of documents from storage units, meaning multiple. We only know of 2. We know the one that they searched, and we know the one that the ME arrived at. We don't know if there's any other ones that were located. They found a 2007 Bank of America credit card statement, which indicated the trip that Asa was taking the kids, to which he later on met up with them a week later.
Right. So I mean, that's and then right away, I mean, a lot of people are going to jump to the Atlantic City cases, those 4 women that were found behind where the Golden Key Motel used to be. And listen, we know he was in Atlantic City. Atlantic City officials have said that he is not involved in this, but the Atlantic City cases happened in 2006. Those ladies were found. This is in 2007. So we do know he goes there. I mean, other than that, there are other situations regarding South Carolina and then specifically Las Vegas, which is something I'm really interested in because it's been radio silence since the big fight to get the DNA in that case.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, if I had to prioritize this, I want to know search warrants. I want to know why the ME was there. I also want to know South Carolina. They picked up that truck. I want to know, was there anything specifically in the truck? Was there DNA? Was there anything? Were there trophies? Were there other cell phones that were not found? Maybe did he have something in a center console? Did he have any tracking devices? Did he have any burlap? What materials were in the truck? Even fibers. Fibers are good guarantee to show. Even fibers from burlap will show the fact that this vehicle could have possibly been used in the connection to a crime. And then also, again, as you mentioned, the DNA from Vegas. Vegas was very quick. Vegas Metro actually is the one that's handling it. They were very quick to put a statement out the fact that they ascertained a DNA sample and that they were going to be going ahead and doing a cross-reference. Well, where is it? But we do know that DNA does take time to process. Some labs are faster than others. There also could be multiple labs going ahead and testing it. You also don't know the size of the DNA sample because you can only need to have, as you know, Joe, and you can explain to everyone, in order to run certain forensic testing, you need to have a specific type of quantity to go ahead and do so. And if the quantity is used by one lab fully or in too many pieces, then another lab may not be able to do a quality control.
Right, and they have the ability to replicate the DNA too in order to be able to do that, and then that can also or open other avenues. New York State is a Fry state, all right? So and it's FRYE, and it's because of the polygraph way back when. It was 1911 or 1913 when this thing came out, but it's about having forensic experts fighting over these things in court, which is going to be one of those things where it has to have the consensus of the scientists in order to be able to say that a specific testing that was done is acceptable for the court. Not like we see in the Daubert rulings, which is in other states where the judge gets to make that decision. So this is a big deal. The evidence in these cases is a big deal with the forensic experts and the fights that are going to happen, whether it's going to be forensics for the digital evidence or the forensics for the DNA evidence. So that's going to play, of course, a big role in here. Now, there was a question I saw that popped up in the chat here. Oh, Sue had said, could this Atlantic City cops be wrong? Well, of course, they could be wrong, but they could also be holding back information too, allowing Suffolk to do their investigation without kind of convoluting the whole thing too. Yeah, you have any thought on that one, Lisa? I know, though. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, right? 4 women, those were posed, but it's still.
So you and I collaborated on another case and talking about, let's say, specific numbers or shapes or patterns that kind of become repetitious. Yes, there are parallels, but I don't believe that these parallels are too aligned per se. The only way that we're going to be able to tie, and by we, I mean just the general true crime community as well as law enforcement and investigators, is to be able to go ahead and have documentation that possibly was acquired through these search warrants at the storage units showing financial records that he was there in Atlantic City. Or you have cell phone triangulation. And I would think at this point, if there was any reason for anything to have come with or come forward pertaining to this, it would have been turned over to Atlantic City and Atlantic City would have said something. But it is a much smaller agency than Suffolk County. Atlantic City is pretty much a drop in the bucket in comparison to the entire state of New Jersey. So maybe they don't have the resources. Maybe they decided to just keep their case closed. We don't know. They really haven't come out and said anything. But it would be very, very surprising if he is responsible for those. And I personally, in my opinion, do not believe he's responsible for those 4 women.
I agree with you on that. I do not think he's responsible for the New Jersey cases. And I was there. I went out there and I talked to some people when I was out there. It's a much different demographic. It's a different kind of customer, different kind of situation. Not like, nothing's below Rex, but, listen, he stands out in the crowd. And if nobody spotted this guy, then he wasn't there. Let's just put it that way, because that's the whole thing. I want to thank Ashley for that super. Thank you very much, Ashley. So we had Ashley and Ashley donate tonight so far too. Thank you guys very much. I really appreciate it. Just to keep me on my toes.
Yeah. So now thinking about it, you just mentioned, obviously, he's described as an ogre. For those of you that have not been to Atlantic City, it's the equivalent of going out to like Myrtle Beach over by Broadway by the water, Santa Monica Pier. It's just a giant boardwalk lined up with casinos, and you have vendors standing on the street. Rex standing out in Atlantic City is the equivalent of going to the circus and seeing the bearded lady. I mean, he's a tourist trap within himself on the boardwalk. You would see him and go, holy crap, it's Sasquatch. You would think he was the Yeti. You'd want to take a picture with him because he's so ginormous. People would remember him because he would just stand out. So if anyone were to see him, I would hope that someone would come forward. But again, the clientele and the socioeconomic demographic area of Atlantic City is very different than the clientele and the locations in which Rex was associating himself with here on Long Island as well as in Manhattan. So I definitely think that because of those two different distributions, gives me another reason to believe that he would not be going to Atlantic City for that purpose to be responsible.
Yes, I think so, and I think you're right, and I agree that this is really nothing to do with Atlantic City, but it's still worth looking into some of those other areas, including, like you said, South Carolina and Vegas. Right? We know Vegas fought for that DNA, right? Because New York State, even though you're allowed to put DNA in upon arrest, right? It was a Supreme Court decision in Maryland versus King. I think it was 2013, if I remember correctly. New York State doesn't do it. It's still based on conviction, and that's the reason why everyone's having problems getting the DNA into the system to test it, and that's why Vegas had to basically, fight for it to get it. I guess they had to prove that there was a viable reason why they needed it in regards to their cases.
Yeah, I mean, Vegas has not just one specific, they do have multiple victims. I think did we just lose you on your own feed? Because you just came and swapped on my screen.
Well, I think, yeah, things kind of, what do you call it? It could be the bad weather out there. We were still here. I mean, things get held up.
I was like, did Joe drop off his own feed? I was like, okay. So there are
no, we're both still here.
Present. President accounted for. It's like roll call all over again. Probably miss those days. But there are multiple victims out there. Some of them have the same MO, some of them don't. But I think what Vegas wanted to do was take the DNA and throw it towards everything and see if it pretty much stuck. He did have his timeshare property. It was off the strip. It was not too far from some of the locations where the victims' remains were located. I'm in Vegas once a month. I mean, I'm going back in 2 weeks to go lecture at a polygraph conference, but I'm moving out there starting in June, permanently relocating out of New York. And I'll tell you, I mean, if you were going to hide a body, I mean, I joke with my fiance, we're driving on the road. I'm like, by the way, if I were going to dump your body, that's where I do it. Because there's just so much of there's just land, there's opportunity, it's desert, you have the climate, but it's similar factors here, which we talked about earlier, Joe. With regards to Gilgo and the outdoors, the contamination of DNA due to environmental factors is so significant, but no matter where you go. So it really comes down to the adequate samples and what they can do. But I think that Vegas needs to step up to the plate. They kind of put the cart before the horse, and someone's got to say something.
Yeah, especially out in Vegas with that heat. Not so much rain and everything like that, but there are some serious environmental factors that will degrade that DNA sample if there was anything there, including human remains. Probably they become skeletalized pretty quickly out there because of the heat and animal activity and everything else that goes on. So that's another issue for investigators. So when you're looking at some of the human remains that they found, they must have found them within a short period of time in regards to the victims were still intact and be able to recover this DNA evidence. So that's actually a good sign in that respect. So yeah, so like Brooklyn Pasola, yeah, mummified remains. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen. I mean, listen, nothing is ever, quote unquote, a textbook case, right? There's always something involved. The type of clothing worn, not worn, hot, cold, rain, animal activity, you name it. It's just part of the investigative dynamics that you have to deal with. But I'm hoping that we see more of the electronic evidence coming out with not only the cell phones, but now some of the financial stuff, the credit cards. I don't know exactly how these transactions went down online, right? So we do know that they reported today about the back page, about him reaching out to some of these victims via his computer, right? They got his laptop. So we're starting to hear now about some of the fruits of their search warrants, but in bits and pieces. Besides the searches that he's done for the thing, there could be lots of other evidence that could be found on that laptop.
I mean, I could only imagine what's in his laptop. From what I gather from his personality, I do see him being a meticulous guy because he doesn't want to get caught, which is why the proof is there that he's looking for these shredding documents. He's looking for these way to clear up his search histories and stuff like that. It also wouldn't surprise me because he's such an there's too many adjectives, I can't use YouTube, but it wouldn't surprise me if the man has a spreadsheet just to keep track of different pieces of information, because he had contacted so many sex workers that maybe he wanted to go ahead and create a ranking system. I've seen and I've heard that before with some investigations that I've handled with repetitive offenders, or especially individuals that have done post-conviction sex offender polygraph testing, but they'll rank their escorts, they'll rank whatever it is, and that way they can go back to the well and make sure that they're not getting their money's worth per se. And it was
Yeah,
very,
that's
very
interesting. I never even thought of that, right? Maybe there is a diary, or like I said, an online journal that he kept about some of these things. And listen, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he kept trinkets or souvenirs or whatever you want to refer to them as, and that's why it was really important to get in that storage facility. And then calling the ME to the storage facility. Listen, there's only one reason to have an ME come to the storage facility. That's it. I mean, am I speculating? Of course, but there's no other reason unless you think you have some sort of human remains.
I mean, they could have just gone in there right off the bat, hit the place with some luminol, and as soon as it glowed, they could have brought someone in there. He could have had one storage unit where he conducted his activities. He could have. We also don't know the size of the unit. I just closed out a storage unit and it was the size of like my little area up here, tiny, like a shoebox. Then you have other ones where I've actually seen people have couches, refrigerators, almost create the storage unit like a man cave, and they had everything with walk-in freezers. So, and we've seen that on TV and movies where you go into a storage unit and they've got a giant separate plugged-in freezer, and there's body parts in there, or there's whatever it is. So he could have had one for business, he could have had one for play. And at this point, we don't know what's going to happen. But for the ME to show up, there's obviously enough of a reason for them to be there. And it's not like they were in and out. They were there for multiple days.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, I know Suffolk County is much smaller than from what I used to deal with, but you know, we did a lot of digs in cold case, and you have all this team together. I mean, should they have had an ME or a medical legal investigator during the initial stage of the search warrant? Yes, you know, and that would have avoided the speculation that we're talking about now, and not just us, but everybody who's been running with this. Like, what did they find if they need the ME now, right? It could be in total nothing burger. But the issue that comes down to is you can avoid this kind of behavior for law enforcement, that is, by having the team together ahead of time, because nobody would have questioned it. Like, why is the anthropologist here? Well, if you find bones, they could tell us if it's human or animal just by looking at it. I mean, that's just, we always had one when we were doing a dig, because you dug up animal bones, you dug up everything. I mean, unfortunately, we've even had situations in New York City where we found African burial grounds, you know, and the whole, you know, those situations. So, I mean, wow. So there's a lot of things that are working at and playing there. So Rochelle wrote the nothing burger. Yep. I mean, that's basically what we're dealing with in those aspects. But you know, this was a huge data dump today. I honestly didn't think it was going to be that intense. I thought they were just going to say, we got him for the 4th. The DNA proved it. I didn't think any of this other stuff was going to come out. I was kind of shocked about that.
I feel that this is the equivalent with the data dump, is the same thing as turning over all of that discovery, where the discovery turnover was happening piece by piece. And I feel like that the way this document is drafted, this is kind of like, hey, take the discovery, here it is, and go have a field day. But again, the document itself is 57 pages, and what people should realize is that just because it's 57 pages doesn't mean that the new affidavit is 57 pages. The first 26 pages is the new modified bail application. The other side is just Exhibit A, which is the old document. But there is definitely a lot to unpack here in this document. And it's just further explaining not only how they're able to tie him to Maureen, but they're bringing Amber's case back to the forefront and identifying the fact of not only is he responsible for Maureen, but he's also responsible for Amber. And yes, we've already charged him with Amber, but this is another proof of the puzzle as to why we're doing it. And that's the connection that they made by doing the cell phone forensics and the computer forensics, citing the fact that he looked at her back page. So it shows that the investigators, whether if it's state or local or even some of the federal agencies getting involved, because I know the Secret Service is working and handling some of the forensics, that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They are doing what they said that they're going to do.
Right, and they have Raul just posted the link to the document for those of you that want to take a look at it now as we're discussing it. It's right there in the chat. You can do it. Thank you, Raul, for putting that up there. You know, it's interesting to see how much this, you know, evidence of the digital evidence that is, excuse me, attaches, like you said, not only to Amber, but other cases as well. I mean, we know he reached out to Melissa Bartholomew's sister, and that was with the big thing about the phone calls and the pinging and everything else. And that's how they narrowed it down to Massapequa Park in New York City. So, yeah, what are those other connections? We only know, I think, this much in regards to that. I think they're really playing this close to the vest. I know people think that the District Attorney Ray Tierney has told too much. I don't think so. I don't think I think we only know, like I said, that much of it. So I think he has a lot more tricks up his sleeve that's not becoming public. The defense knows it because he's handing it all over.
Tierney, I had concerns coming into this entire thing of an inadequate prosecutor, because we've seen this so many times before in other cases, and even right now, other cases that are playing out in the media pertaining to other true crime situations around the country. I can't give the man enough credit. I do believe that whatever metric version you used of this, Joe, I'm going to go with like the tip of my pinky is pretty much what he's given. He's holding everything so tight because at the same time, he has put himself, his reputation, his office, the community, the world, pretty much, any citizen that could have interacted with him at some point in time, whether it's traveling domestically, internationally, whoever it is, anyone that's interacted with him. He's pretty much put everything on the line to say, this is the guy, this is what's going on, we're going to hold him accountable. He does not want to go ahead and screw anything up to taint his reputation and possibly, as you and I talked about, Joe, any further political moves that he may want to go ahead and make.
Yeah, this is the equivalent. Lisa and I had spoke about this offline. I think it was last night. We were talking about this. This has reminiscence of a history lesson here. Quick, you know, Thomas Dewey, the famous New York City district attorney way back when, and then the whole famous, you know, Dewey defeats Truman in the presidential election, but he was the governor of New York State. And I do think that Tierney has, you know, bigger political aspirations. And you know what? If he wins this case, and it looks like it's definitely leaning towards that way, he's going to write himself his own political ticket, because the Suffolk County District Attorney is already a political spot. You have to be elected to it. So it's not much of a stretch to think about that in regards to it. So like you said, Lisa, you're right. He's putting everything on the line on this case, but it is, I think it's a good case. So I'm like, I mean, I remember we just got off STS for those of you that were, you know, and we mentioned the, you know, on STS with Joel about, you know, this whole thing, right? I mean, like, what happens next? What happens if something goes wrong? What happens if something goes right? Yeah. Right? Listen, that's the same thing, everything in life, but it's just something that it is what it is in that respect. So you can't blame the guy for taking the bull by the horns. You kind of actually like it. I agree with you. I was kind of like little concerned about it at first, but you know what? Is more and more. I like the guy more time I hear him talk, and I think he's got his handle on this thing pretty good.
I think the issue is also the fact that he really needs to keep this close to the vest, because yes, both sides are trying case in the media right now. But as we talked about previously, you're going to do a jury selection. He has to be able to convey this case to the public during these press conferences in such a way where he can get a jury. He doesn't have to worry about not having to change a venue. He can go ahead and try this case in the jurisdiction that is as close to home, in addition to the jurisdiction of where these victims were located, and where, I mean, we don't have confirmation that the crime happened in these locations, but we know where the remains were found. So I think that he's playing it very, very smart.
And so, yeah, so Heather's asking, more damning evidence close to the vest? Yes, I believe there is. I believe there's a lot more digital evidence and a lot more forensic evidence. I mean, listen, we learned today that they surveilled his daughter to get that DNA sample, to get that abandonment sample in order to be able to put that to rest, that there is only one person's DNA that we're looking at, and that's Rex. And I think they did a really good job with that abandonment sample.
Yeah, I'm looking at that here. They got the sample on May 25th, 2023. So that's prior to his arrest.
Right.
And so they did physical surveillance. They picked her up boarding a Long Island Railroad train at Penn Station. So May 25th, don't mind me, I'm going to go to my handy dandy calendar for a second. Playing Blue's Clues over here, 36 years old.
I think
so
the
May
arrest
25th
was July 16th.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the 25th because that is the Thursday before Memorial Day weekend. Now, Joe, you know what Penn Station's like at 5 o'clock on any given day, let alone any time of day, maybe 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's a huge holiday trip. That is a huge holiday. There's going to be congestion, and especially a peak train going on the Babylon train line towards Massapequa Park. They would have had to probably tail her from wherever she came from. They'd have to positively ID her in Penn. And Penn Station is massive. This isn't just going to be the undercover agents of the task force being 2 people. I could think of at least 4 exits and entrances coming in and out of Penn Station. So the dedication and resources of time of this task force just to acquire this DNA sample is mind-blowing.
Yeah. But to think about this for a second, like, I'm a guy that took the Long Island Railroad for years going into the city. You kind of fall into the creature of habit. You kind of know what car you're going to go to. You know what the seat you want. So people on the Long Island Railroad are pretty predictable. And I think that kind of helps them out on here. So Sue asked, abandonment sample. Yes. Okay. An abandonment sample is we're just going to do a quick little lesson on here. California versus Green is a Supreme Court decision that allows the police to collect any evidence or anything that you abandon, you get rid of, whether it's saliva, you spit, the pizza crust, or in this case, the can of energy drink, and they can take it and they can test it. There's only one state that I know of that still, even though you can take it, they still need a warrant in order to actually test it, and that's in New Jersey. But everywhere else, it's fair game. You got rid of it, it's no longer yours. As soon as you put it out to the curb, right? We saw this with the Koberger case where he was throwing out garbage in the neighbors' bins, and the police went in Pennsylvania and took that. So that's what the abandonment sample is all about, and that's what they use as the exemplar to match up. And that's how, because you have different DNA samples, you need to be able to say, who are these other people? And that's what they did with his daughter.
It's just I'm just going to call this entire situation like father, like daughter. They did the same thing to Rex with the pizza crust. They got an abandonment sample, and they now went ahead and they did the same thing to the daughter. But again, I'm going to stress, I mean, the size of Penn Station, the amount of people that it did take to go ahead and do this, she would have had to have been under surveillance for a period of time for them to know that she was going to be leaving Manhattan at that specific time. Unless they went ahead and they did cell phone forensics on her. They were able to clone her phone. They were able to see text message, cell phone records, anything like that, ascertain maybe text messages from the day before showing that she's going to be traveling, she's going to be going here, or whatever she's going to be doing. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, no, I mean, this was a huge investigation. And remember, having that task force allowed them to actually be able to do this. So, having the state police, having the resources of the FBI, the Secret Service with the cell phones we're hearing about now, the state police, all of these agencies that are working together for this common goal allows them to have the personnel to be able to do something like this. It's not like television where they're solving this case in 45 minutes with 3 commercials. I mean, when you're trying to track down somebody and follow and hope that they're going to get rid of something at this point is actually remarkable. I couldn't imagine how many hours it took them before they finally got what they needed.
And at the time when they did this and they were tailing her, because I'm just looking here at the comments, someone was asking about her job. Flynn Brown Finland, she was working for him as an employee at the consulting business in the city. So they obviously they could have record of that. He could, on the basis of the investigation alone. You could also just Google her and it comes up that she's an employee of the firm, taking a look at her LinkedIn. So they could also go ahead and figure, well, listen, she's going to go from the office and she's going to go to Penn Station, because Grand Central was not operating at that time commuting to and from Long Island. So she only had one way home by train. So they could have just picked her up there. But again, the task force significance is the fact that they had the resources on the local, state, and federal level to go ahead and get this sample. And it's a huge way. But I'm just taking a look here at the, yeah, so it says here that the female DNA profile was developed from the buccal swab of her, which matched the DNA profile from the CAM. So they did take the buccal swab from her, and the buccal swab was taken at the time of the arrest, which she was not served a subpoena, and she was not issued any warrant of any sort to go ahead and ascertain her DNA. She did voluntarily comply.
Yeah, it sounds like a consent sample. At this point, I get a little nervous when it comes to the consent things, because now they're going to say, well, I felt that it wasn't really under consent, it was coerced and everything else. That's what's going to happen now with the defense attorneys for sure. Write it down right now. That's exactly what Michael Brown's going to say, is that they gave up these samples because they were coerced into doing it. They were too scared. So Marjorie asked a question about the belts. One of the belts was actually Ace's, we learned today.
Yeah, that.
And another thing about the belts. Today is the exact date that they but then Geraldine Hart held up the belt. Today's the exact date, whatever, is from January 16th of 2022, I think it was. So that's another interesting tidbit. I don't believe in coincidences that's the date they say they chose to, because this is the belt that was found with Maureen Brainerd Barnes. All those things not coincidental as far as I'm concerned. I was hoping that somebody would ask them that at the press conference.
Yeah, I feel that the media could have come in there with better questions. I think it's just the oh my God factor that happened, where it was just so much so soon, and it was just, okay, well, we have to process this and get it out. I do think that in the next time that we see Tierney, I think that he will have more answers for us, not necessarily relating to what's in this specific document. I think he'll be able to provide further information. But he was asked by a reporter regarding the situation of search warrants and what's the storage units, and he openly said that he's not discussing that. So clearly, as we talked about, there's something there that he's holding to the vest that he does not want to let go yet.
Yeah, no, it's actually interesting, because we know that the entire discovery dump hasn't happened yet, and it is volumes and volumes of information that we still don't know about. I mean, the digital evidence alone. I mean, you think about just one cell phone, the amount of records could be hundreds of pages. And if you don't believe me, just look at your own bill. I tell people, look at your own cell phone bill. Look at they mark your text messages, your phone calls, your internet usage. These things could be dozens and dozens of pages long. But you know what? We forget about it because most of us do the digital one. We don't get the paper one anymore. I remember we used to get them in the mail. They used to be like this thick.
Oh my God! It'd
So
be
could
like a
you
phone
imagine
book.
having to do that for several phones? Right. Could you imagine having to do this for not one phone, but 10 phones or what, 8 phones, whatever it is? Unbelievable amount of work that has to get done in this.
I mean, I'll tell you, I don't miss those days of people having paper phone bills, because as a private investigator, I used to do insurance cases, and people would have to go online, go to T-Mobile or Verizon, log into your account, print your bill, and turn over cell phone records just to either prove the fact that you're not involved in the crime, there's no collaboration or collusion, whatever it is. And to go there and highlight line by line and set up a system, and Joe, you know how much of a pain this is. You have to use 15 different colored inks. You have to use 18 different Post-it colors. You have to start marking it up, and God forbid you highlight the wrong thing. It's just a nightmare. But because of technology these days, it's so much easier to go ahead and recategorize information. The downfall versus phone numbers then versus now is technology. You have these mobile apps where you could just download burner numbers. I mean, you have Google Voice, where you can create a fake Google account. You can go ahead and get a fake phone number, and then you can use whatever you want, and you delete the email account, delete the number. Same thing with the burner number. I mean, I have an app on my phone that I use because, of course, I'm a private investigator. I don't want anyone having my personal cell number. But if I want to right now, I can kill this number, get a whole new one, and start fresh in 20 minutes. I can make one phone call, delete the number. So there is a possibility that he maybe was doing that, where he takes a cell phone. I mean, we don't know the two types of phones he had other than that flip phone or anything else. But as long as he has a device and he connects it to Wi-Fi, he can download a mobile app and just use that and not even have an active landline.
Exactly. I mean, and even that, even things like Google Voice and all these other different phones that you can have to mask those phones on top of it. So Candace asked about, does a belt belong to Acer? And I believe, yes, that was one of the things that they said today. Two of the belts, we know one had the initials on it, the WH, and I think it was WH, right? And the one had the tip of that cut off where those initials could have been. And then there was a third belt that was found on Marine branded bonds that I believe they said today that belonged to Acer. So that's the whole thing with the belt. So there's three belts at least involved in this case with either all Maureen branded bonds or one of the other cases too. I'd have to double check my facts on that. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm looking here actually. Maureen is confirmed with the belt buckle. There was hair pertaining to Asa. So that's confirmed. We already know about the WH on the belt, and that's the belt that Geraldine was holding up. And that obviously,
Yep.
on the basis of the initials, we went ahead and public determination. I mean, Family Feud, number one answer goes back to Rex on that one. But there was an addition. I'm just searching through here. Pertaining to another belt and who they identified it for. Bear with me one second. There's so many words, Joe, and I've been looking at this thing so. I feel like
as you're looking for that, as you're looking through that, I just want to make Lisa a Hawk fan. Thank you very much for that. Super. I really appreciate that. That was very generous of you. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just there's so many different working parts to this thing. Did you find what you were looking for?
I know. No, of course I haven't, because I think my eyes are completely fried. I'm just looking at all the DNA stuff to see what's here. This is regarding the male hair. This is
we've been talking about this all day long.
pizza box. I know.
So for those of you that, as Lisa has been doing this, we've been talking about this case since 10 o'clock this morning. So we have just bleary-eyed. And plus I did a Law and Crime Network spot in the middle of this that actually already got posted. So if you want to see that, that's on they put that on their YouTube channel already. And maybe we'll get something to eat and something to sleep tonight, Lisa. My God, I'm going to be thinking about this all night.
Is this your last interview for today? Are you done after this?
Yeah. Oh, I'm done. Yeah. And you have still one more.
Must be nice. Yeah, no, I still have one more after with web sleuths about the Casey Anthony polygraphs that were taken by her parents. Yeah, Joe, I don't see it here. I see everything pertaining to the male hair. I see things pertaining to one belt that we talked about. The female hair, that's the monster Java cup. Yeah, I don't see anything more specific in this bail application, at least in today's bail application, but we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Okay.
So what do you, I mean, listen, what's the odds of finding just one credit card statement in the storage facility too? I mean, I find that hard to believe, right? That there's just the sole piece of, credit card information that they find.
And not only is it just a sole piece of evidence and it's one piece of paper, the piece of paper is specifically dated as I scroll up. So this is an August 2007 credit card statement. Who is holding on to paperwork from 2007 if there was no significance for it? I mean, I'm packing up my apartment right now, and I'm going ahead and I'm taking a look at stuff, and I'm like, hell do I need this for? I don't need this crap anymore, and I throw it out because you don't realize what you've accumulated. For him to knowingly take this documentation, put it into a box or a storage bin, and then put it into a storage unit, there's got a reason why. Especially because in 2007, that was at the beginning of his financial hardship pertaining to tax liens, but this isn't something that someone would hold on to. I did notice, Joe, and this is kind of freaky, that the transaction date starts off with going to Wildwood. Wildwood is south of Atlantic City. And as per the bail document, he went ahead and he didn't check in to the new hotel until July 13th. So this could be a joint credit card account that he has with Asa. He could be the prime, because it says prepared for Rex Huerman. She could be a secondary card holder, which is why there's a transaction date for location in Wildwood. But the day that he arrives on the 13th, there is American Fashion, which is the American Fashion Mall, which is kind of like which are the outlets at Atlantic City. Boardwalk Favorites, so that's a vendor on the boardwalk. And then you have Victoria's Secret, store number 135. You're on a family vacation with your children. So the question is, did he make the purchase of Victoria's Secret and for the amount of $25.68? Or does Asa have a joint credit card and she went ahead and she made the purchase for herself? Or was Victoria there and she needed to buy her daughter something? We don't know what specifically happened, but it's just very, the choice of transactions upon his arrival is interesting. The other side of it is that you also have, and it's not highlighted here and I don't know why. If you take a, Joe, you saw the Bank of America statement, right?
Yes.
Okay, so they highlighted the flagship hotel with a transaction date on 7/14 in Atlantic City, and they also highlighted the Skyline Tower. What they missed is in between additional transactions at the Tropicana. So did they check out of one hotel, stay somewhere else, and then go ahead and move to the Skyline? Were they just associating at the Tropicana? I don't know, but Tropicana in comparison to the flagship and Skyline are night and day. One is a property on the casino, on the boardwalk, and the other two on the strip.
It's actually interesting because, I mean, it looks like, didn't he stay at a different hotel when he had his wife there and stuff anyway? I mean, like, yeah, so you go there and you're going to go stay somewhere else. It's, the whole thing is weird. So Sleuths Investigate, thank you very much for the super. And she asks us, what is your guys' thoughts on his Google searches when it comes to the other victims?
Oh,
well, like I said, we talked about the new Google searches. He has his old Google searches where, you know, the Asian twink, where we have one of the Asian male doe who was found in women's clothing. That's another interesting little tidbit there. So that was from the original data dump. So yeah, listen, internet records, cell phone records, and video surveillance are the things that go and move these cases forward. So yeah, the Google searches, we can't really say exactly what they were, the new batch, because they're absolutely outrageous, and they're really disturbing. I mean, we're talking like major league disturbing stuff, and so we have to avoid actually even naming them. Raul did post the link for it. You can go there, and once you read them, you'll know exactly what I mean. Make sure you're above the age of 18. Yeah, make sure you're above the age of 18 before reading that. Yeah, and please, 18 or over for that. That is definitely.
And to take a play out of Michael Brown's book, just because you read or you hear something doesn't mean you need to Google it, because I can tell you don't want any of this stuff showing up on your search history.
Yeah, and I'm shocked that the search histories, some of those aren't like flagged. Like, you know, when you look at those words that he was using, I can't believe they're not flagged either by Google or anybody else, that a notification is made, because that's how disturbing they are. I mean, normal people aren't searching for that stuff. I'm sorry, just not happening.
I'm trying to mind my words right now. So what's interesting is that there has been either the true crime community and or some experts that have openly stated there's a parallel between Rex and other serial killers that are out there. And again, right now, Rex is just an alleged serial killer. Just because there's charges filed against him, we cannot go ahead and say anything. You can make speculation. This is just the public caveat of innocent till proven guilty. Now, there are some things that are on this list that are very indicative of other serial killers and their MOs and their motives and what's been done. And that's been confirmed because of other investigations that have gone on. So to me, this stands out as this kind of makes another similarity and another argument for maybe that he's taken something from the playbook from other serial killers.
and he's already searched for them. He's actually searched for other serial killers in the first dump that we found. I mean, listen, remember, they're only telling us what they want us to see. I mean, if those 15 items that they added today, I guarantee you that there were things that were far more worse that they didn't want to put on paper and actually put out on a public document. They'd have to redact it. I mean, it's as simple as that. So I think they would try to avoid that at all costs.
Well, now that you bring that up, I can only imagine what was actually not put on this list. And that's kind of scary because you and I have seen some very interesting things. We have interviewed very interesting individuals. No two people are alike. So for this to be made public clearly says that there's something out there that's even worse that we can't give you.
Yeah, I would definitely speculate at that. I generally don't get into the speculation market too much, but I'll speculate on this. There are searches that he has performed that are far worse than the ones we saw today. And if you look at that list, they're pretty bad already. So I can only imagine. I mean, listen, we got a little insight with the first dump, right? I mean, some of the things that he was looking for about, ages and, and now in this one, it's more like, sizes, skinny, those kind of things, but
Color, shape, and size.
it just kind of runs with the whole. Yeah. It's and remember, this is 10 years, 13 years after the fact too. So he was on the prowl for something specific at that point. And Backpage was already gone. There's a couple other things. So I mean, he had to be doing some other searching. We just don't know where that is yet either, right? So they mentioned Backpage, but Backpage hasn't been in business for 12 years. So, and if you think he just stopped looking, I think we're all kind of hitting ourselves here.
Yeah. So
I
the
agree.
timeline is interesting.
Drew says speculation market is iffy. It certainly is. He said the speculation market is iffy. It is.
It's very iffy, but I'm a very big believer of it looks like a duck, walk like a duck, it's not a cow.
So
what I'm noticing,
Ashley, can he be done for the searches alone? I don't think so, because it's all about, if you're downloading this stuff. I mean, that's the other thing, really. They haven't told us to be downloaded any of those pictures or videos or audios that he was searching for. That could lead to other charges for sure when you look at some of those topics.
Well, yeah.
But that's the least of his worries right now.
Okay, so run through this scenario with me, Joe. He goes ahead, he has these topics. Let's say he went ahead and he downloaded it, maybe from a shared file server, and or he disseminates this. Doesn't it then become a federal crime for trafficking this information? It gives the feds more of a reason to pick him up and to go ahead and
I don't think the feds would get involved just because of his internet searches, though. I don't think so in that regards, because I think the feds would the only way they get involved is if, let's say, Las Vegas comes online and they attach them to a case over there. That's the only way I think the feds. Listen, in my experience, the feds are always lurking. They're always in the background. They're always watching, looking over your shoulder. And listen, on TV, unfortunately, they kind of get this bad rep, that, they're trying to steal the case, or they're trying to do it. I would be more than glad to hand them over the cases, because they have unlimited resources, which local law enforcement doesn't have. They have the ability to be able to put these things together in different states, which Suffolk County Police Department doesn't, if you start bringing in, especially across the country. So that's the other thing. Yeah. And you, as the law enforcement agency, still get credit for closing the arrests, because once they put their paperwork through, the Suffolk County Police Department will put their paperwork through, cases closed, they get the credit for it. I mean, that's the way it goes. So who cares who closes it, and who cares who takes the credit for it, so to speak? You will get your due diligence out of this if you just let the process take place. TV, though, everything, we're taking over, we're in charge, whatever. Yeah, that's not the real world.
So going back to the cell phone forensics, so they're stating here in this document that in April 2021, we have this list of terminology. Then he starts freaking out in July of 2021. So April to July so 3 months later, he starts freaking out. How is cell phone tracking increasing to solve crimes? how does cell site analysis work, historical cell site overview principles and survey, the FBI cellular analysis team. So at this point, I mean, for a specific search topic, FBI cellular analysis survey team, something's got to be going on in his head to going ahead and thinking, okay, crap, not only have I possibly, maybe they're on to me, there could be a sense of paranoia. It also could be of, I need to start going ahead and covering my traces. I would go back and look at the credit card statements and go ahead, or even look at a timeline. Was he purchasing other cell phones? What was the time period of the cell phones being purchased now that he's paranoid and looking this stuff up?
And also, you know what though, Lisa, that's a great point that you bring up. You know what? Now, when you, as soon as you said it, I didn't want to interrupt you because you were on a roll there. But what other cases were going on in the media that maybe that maybe sparked his interest in regards to the police had these forensics, the digital forensics, and they did all this stuff. And so that's what I'm going to start looking up now too, because that could be a reason too, right? Something big happens in the media, and all of a sudden now he's like, oh my God, what about me? And then, like you said, cause that paranoia, which would then cause him to run to Google like just about everybody else would. I mean, if you went to if you took every one of your symptoms about you weren't feeling well, you went to Google with it, you'd have about 37 minutes to live. Right. So everyone kind of does that. Everyone kind of does that. So I mean, it's not unusual that he would do that. The only thing is that, you know, the Michael Brown, I think he's going to regret making those comments about, you know, hey, everybody does this stuff. Yeah. If for those of you that haven't seen it, and when you see it later, you let me know what's in your closet, right? I mean, no way, no how.
We should go ahead and make that a post on Twitter of what's in your closet and let people take pictures of their closets to go ahead and get that trending. But I mean, it could be really interesting, like messiest closet, turn it into a whole competition or most organized and things like that. But I just did a Google search because I was just wanting to pique my own interest here. And taking a look at his former screenshots, not necessarily of what his preferences were, I guess you could put it that way. But he was looking up at that time, Long Island serial killer phone call, looking for updates, active serial killers from the FBI. And then he just has the name John Bitroff. And surprisingly, Joe, we haven't talked about him all day. So I think that might be a good segue.
So we have a few minutes left. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a few minutes left. So let's talk a little John Bitroff and how this could be playing into this whole thing. So for those that don't know, do you want to just give us the quick version of John Bitroff, what he's responsible for?
You go for it, because I'm just going to pull out something else right here in front of me.
Okay. So John Bitroff is he's a convicted killer. He was convicted of killing two women, Rita Tangretti and Colleen McNamee. And there was a third person that they didn't attach the case to, that they didn't do that. So he was only two. So technically, in regards to the FBI's definition, he's not considered a serial killer, but for all intents and purposes, people treat him like that. And yeah, so Raul just put it. So there's a 440 motion going on now. And a 440 motion, if you want to look it up, it's in the New York State Criminal Procedural Law, or the CPL for short. And it's basically to vacate an order of a conviction. So he was convicted, I believe it was 2017. He was convicted for murdering those two women. And what it was 2017? He was convicted, you know?
Yeah, 2017. So, yep, I got it here.
Here's the thing about it. One of the articles that I was reading about the John Bitroff case was that there was a mixture of DNA in at least one of the victims, Rita Tangretti, if I remember correctly. Now, this is an important aspect of it, right? Because that means there were other people's DNA with this woman. And the other question comes down to is, whose DNA was it? Now, according to what District Attorney Ray Tierney says, they are looking to have the cases vacated because they said that they didn't get all of the DNA evidence and everything that was, you know, about the case. So they're actually claiming, I guess, a discovery issue. And remember, Tom Spoda was in charge back then. And And then, yeah, so Raul confirms that several DNA profiles were present. So the question comes down to is, apparently Bitroff's DNA was there, but one thing about when you have mixtures, it doesn't tell you the time when they were donated, right? For a lack of a better adjective. So there are other men's DNA in regards to this. Who knows what's going on? I don't believe in coincidences in that respect. I don't believe in coincidences at all. But just so happens that this thing is starting to rear its ugly head. John Bitroff was being Googled by Rex. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things going on. We're not going to get into the whole speculation angle of it too, but that's basically just to answer the question about what the whole John Bitroff thing has to do with this. Yes, Tiff,
Yes.
donated. You like that word?
I'm
Sorry,
still
I don't know what
processing.
adjective to use. I still try to keep things PG-13, right? So, I mean, I know we're all big boys and girls here, but you never know. There could be a kid in the chat. I don't know. So I want to just try to keep those things to be able to, keep it for a PG-13 kind of thing. So a lot of people like us over here. Is Lisa Hawken again? You guys are great together. Can we do another one soon? I think Lisa's going to be tired after me today. And we had 3 shows that we did today, 2 for me and 1 for STS. But yes, she's always welcome back.
Joe, I will
and
be
listen,
here
John
whenever you
Bitroff
want
thing,
me.
we're going to follow that. And if something pops, okay, well, we have John Bitroff, I think is going to be the next big thing. But do you know if, because originally Rex was supposed to be, his court case was supposed to be February 6th. Now, do you know if that case is still on there? On that docket? I didn't run it before I got on because I didn't have time. So this was an unexpected appearance today. So that's why we knew it was a big deal.
Yeah, so eCourt still hasn't listed for the February 6th appearance. One of the comments does say rescheduled, but from what I understand from my source that was actually in the courtroom that was giving me everything live this morning, that they are going to go ahead and keep the appearance. It is not going to be rescheduled, and they're going to go ahead and continue moving forward with just the process. And now, with that first bail application, there was the discovery dump for that bail application. Now we have to wonder, is there going to be a different type of discovery dump just to go ahead and apply towards this this bail application because of the modification?
Exactly. Yeah, that was just me applying to the terms of service. Yes. YouTube is very weird. Plus, like I said, if we can, I always say, if I can avoid saying certain words, even though they're allowable, I usually try to do so because I always worry about mixed company. If my mother ever heard me say some of those words that I say, whatever, she'd go crazy. So, and Mom actually watches the show too, so I have to make sure that I don't get slapped the next time she sees me. And then that's like, but listen, Lisa, it was great seeing you all day. It was,
I know,
but we didn't get a chance to really say. It was really cool. And listen, we were up to 300 viewers. We're down to about 207. So it was unbelievable. Hi, Joe's mom. Yep, Mom's watching. She's a big fan of the show. I mean, all moms are big fans of the show. She's getting up there in age, but she still does the computer stuff. Lisa, I want to thank you very much for your time today. I know your time is very valuable, and I appreciate that you shared it with me today. And,
oh my God, of
to
course.
get your perspective and some. And get some interest. We're going to have you back when some of these other things break. We had a great panel this morning. If you guys missed the 2-hour live we did this morning, we had an unexpected guest, but Raul from Catch List was there. My friend Mike Alcazar, the retired detective, was there. Lisa showed up, and we had a special guest. You can tune in and see who that was towards the end of it. Lisa, you have a great night. Everybody, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Thank you for hitting that like button. And for those that donated and the members, I really appreciate that. You guys have a great night, and we're going to keep on pushing forward. With another Carla got one in at the last minute. Thank you. Snuck that in the last second, Carla. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You guys have an awesome night. Stay warm and drive carefully. You guys, good night.
Good night, guys.